Cool, we can start.
Sure. So again, hello, my name is Pauline, and I'm a front-end engineer. I love, most of all, I think, browser APIs, and I like making web accessible for everyone. I also write articles about audio. They are not available in English for now, but they will soon. And so today I will be speaking about history of the most popular keyboard layouts because as I know, many people even know that some other keyboard layouts exist, but there are like a lot of them. And I will cover only three most popular ones, which are QWERTY as somewhat default layout, AtWork, and Coma, because these three keyboard layouts you can find in the most operating systems. So, for example, I personally use AtWork, and I use it both on my laptop on macOS and on my phone on Android, and I know that on Windows it is available too. So if after this talk you want to try to experiment, you can do it without any problem. So start with QWERTY because it is the oldest one among those three, and because it's the most popular. There's a myth that QWERTY was designed to be slow, and that's why other keyboard layouts were created. And I would like to kind of debunk this myth. And how you can make a keyboard layout slower. You either put letters that are frequently used on different or on completely different places to prevent jamming, or you put it close enough but make people type it with the same finger because it is also slower. But if we look at the most frequent biograms, like combination of two letters, and look at the QWERTY layout, actually you will see that some of them, the most frequent ones, are placed quite close to each other, but you type them really fast because you use different fingers while typing. So this theory doesn't look like it is true, and it doesn't look like it was some main reason while designing QWERTY. But why QWERTY was designed in the first place? It was designed by Christopher Sholes, and Christopher Sholes was one of the first inventors of typewriters in the United States. So as he was inventing a typewriter, he needed some keyboard layout. And if you look closer, this was the first attempt to create some layout for his typewriter. If you look at it, you can see that letters are placed here in the alphabetical order. And it turned out that it is very difficult to type with it, and it is uncomfortable. So he was working for a few years, collecting feedback and making improvements, and he ended up with QWERTY layout. It's slightly different from one that you have, but it's almost the same. He patented it in 1878, and since then it became the most popular keyboard layout that we use. And Sholes sold his typewriter to company Remington and Sons. And if you ever tried buying a typewriter or just I don't know, Googling them, you probably might have seen them because they're very popular. And there are also different variations, different regional variations, where either some letters are swapped with each other, or some letters specific for alphabets of these countries appear. For example, this is Danish keyboard, Danish QWERTY, where layout is almost the same, but a few letters appear that are not presented in English. And actually, 19th century, even like the end of the 19th century, was very productive for inventors of typewriters. And I will not cover all of them, but I would like to just mention a couple of them, like the most interesting in my taste. For example, here is Hansen writing ball. It was invented in 1865 by Rasmus Moen Hansen in Denmark, and it was actually quite popular back then. It looks a bit peculiar because we're like really used it to like flat layouts, but actually some people even told that it was more comfortable to use because of its shape. And interesting fact is that Friedrich Nietzsche, famous German philosopher, he tried using it when he started having problems with his sight. It was difficult to write to him, so he asked for this typewriter. But unfortunately, his typewriter was damaged while like during the transportation, and he actually didn't enjoy his experience. And another typewriter I wanted to mention is Blickensderfer typewriter. It was invented in 1891 by George Blickensderfer in the United States. It was a portable, very small typewriter. It consisted only of 250 parts, while like more usual typewriters contained 2,500 parts. So it was it contained 10 times less details in it, and it made it much smaller and cheaper, and thus more accessible. Unfortunately, it didn't survive the First World War and death of George Blickensderfer in 1917. It was eventually sold to Remington, and Remington tried to introduce a modified Blickensderfer typewriter, but eventually it didn't go well, and unfortunately it was discontinued. And what is interesting about this typewriter, not only that it is very small, but it also had a different keyboard layout from QWERTY. It was created after careful analysis of English language, and it minimized hand movement of a keyboard from one letter to another. So it increased in efficiency. And the lowest row of keys contained the most commonly used letters, which are like D, H, I, T, and S or R in English language, not because there's other like Latin languages, but it works only for English language here. But unfortunately, as I said, it didn't survive the war. And the next I wanted to discuss AtWork. It is one layout that I personally use and prefer. And this is how it looks like. And if you look at it closely, you can notice that the middle row of this layout actually contains almost the same letters as previous typewriter, because it was kind of inspired by the Blickensderfer typewriter because this row contains the most frequent letters. And it was moved to the second row because it's harder to reach the lowest row of the keyboard than the middle one. So the less frequent letters were moved to the last row instead. And interestingly, in this layout, vowels are moved to the left, and most used symbol characters are on the left. And all vowels, you can also notice they are on the middle row because you use them frequently. And the most used consonants are on the right side. So you, to type using this layout, you need to alternate between your hands, and it increases speed of typing as well. And why this keyword layout was created in the first place? It was created by August Warwick, and August Warwick was an American professor. He was researching psychology and different aspects of typewriting, and he even wrote a book about it called Typewriting Behavior. And August Dvorak, with his brother-in-law, William Dealey, constructed a new keyboard because they believed it is to be more ergonomic and that you can type faster with it. And they patented it in 1936. But will Dvorak actually make you type faster? Unfortunately, we can't know this for sure because we simply don't have enough data to state which keyboard might make you typing faster. And I personally believe that it could, just because keyboard layouts like Dvorak were created after analysis of using English language, and creating it, their authors just analyzed the information more thoroughly because before actually designing the keyboard. So we can't tell for sure, but I personally chose Dvorak for this reason. And maybe you know, but there was a world champion according to the Guinness World Record, Barbara Blackburn. She was a world champion for many years, and she advertised Dvorak a lot, saying that it is much more comfortable to use than QWERTY. But Sean Warner beat this record for different time intervals, but the Guinness record team was not presented, so it, kind of Barbara Blackburn is still a world record holder for Guinness record team, but unofficially he beat the record and he uses QWERTY. So it proves that you still can type quite fast with any keyboard layout. And Sean Warner said that he maybe he would type even faster with Dvorak, but it is really difficult to switch from one keyboard to another. It takes effort and time to adapt it, and so we will never know if he will if he would be faster with Dvorak or than he is with QWERTY already. And I just wanted to mention that if you want to to take part in different to become like a record holder as well, there are different competitions for different amount of time. So some of them you need to type for 2 minutes, for 5 minutes, or for 50 minutes. It is a bit like running for short or large distance. It requires a bit different skills. And will Dvorak make you more comfortable while typing? If you just ask people who use AtWork, or just, I don't know, Google different opinions, you will find out that according to some people, AtWork not only might increase your speed while typing, but also helps your hands to feel less tired, more comfortable while typing. Unfortunately, there are no proper research covering that. There are some small ones, but they are not good enough to prove anything. So if you know any scientists and doctors who would like to research this subject, I encourage you to do that, just because it is really interesting if such a thing like keyboard layout can benefit people in their health as well. And there are different variants of AtWork layout as well, as it was in QWERTY, and two of them are left-handed and right-handed AtWork. They are designed for people who mostly type with one hand. As August Work was a professor who was researching different aspects of typing, he also thought about accessibility for people who needed to type only with one hand. And he designed also these two keyboard layouts for people. The main difference with usual AtWork is that on these layouts, most popular letters are moved to one side, either left or right, because you use those letters and signs more frequently, and it really increases your speed and comfort while typing. And there are different online interactive lessons to learn AtWork. And there are also some lessons for specifically left-handed and right-handed work as well. So people who need it really can increase good results with these lessons and with left-handed and right-handed work. And also left-handed and right-handed work are available also on most operating systems as usual work. And next variation is programmed work. It was developed by Roland Kaufman in 2000s, and you can't use it by default. You have to install it manually. But it is an interesting variant for developers, because if you see letters are placed on the same places, but numbers and different brackets and signs are swapped with each other. So by default, you type bracket, and if you use the shift key, you will type number, because as developers, we use brackets much more often than numbers, and it makes us type also faster. And another interesting detail is that numbers here are divided into two groups, or odd numbers and even numbers, also to increase efficiency. And last but not least is Coma layout. It is the most young layout. It was developed in 2006 by Shai Coleman. Coleman is a developer, so he was trying to make a more comfortable and efficient keyboard than QWERTY, but at the same time, he tried to make it more easy to switch from QWERTY to Colmac. And also in this keyboard, the popular hotkeys remained in the same places, but at the same time, it increases efficiency and minimizes finger path distance. So here how it looks like. As you can see here, most popular letters that you use in hotkeys, they are in their usual places like Z, X, C, and V, as we use them very often. And also interesting detail is that it doesn't have caps lock actually, because many people actually don't really use caps lock, and it replaced with the second backspace instead, because backspace we use much more frequently. And as a user of AtWork, what problems do I face? Well, first of all, some hotkeys are not comfortable to use, because the letters that are used for these hotkeys are spread all over keyboard, unlike QWERTY or Coma. And some software is heavily designed for QWERTY layout. For example, most popular example maybe Vim. I don't use Vim, but when I tried learning it, I realized how difficult it is to use with AtWork, because again, all letters are spread everywhere, and it is difficult to move through document like that. There are some solutions to it, but as I don't use it so frequently, I didn't try solving this problem. But most importantly, what I wanted to talk about is that it is really difficult for me to use different web applications, which have different shortcuts. And for example, different online editors like Photoshop Online or something. And they are usually tied to physical QWERTY layout. So when I use these applications, I need not only to remember my default layout, but also to remember where keys are placed for QWERTY layout as well. And it slows me down when I walk, and sometimes I don't expect it, and I use some shortcut and do something that I didn't want to do. And an example of such an application is QWERTY. It has different shortcuts that could help you navigating faster. But for me, it is not that easy to use them, as I said, and it makes a bit pointless having them, because trying to remember which key I need to use now will slow me down eventually. And that's why keyboard API was invented. With get layout map, you receive a promise with a map of a key value structure, and here you can find out what key on a physical keyboard, if it was a QWERTY layout keyboard, if you press any key on physical QWERTY layout, which letter or sign will be actually typed. So imagine you buy some default keyboard or laptop or something, and on its keyboard is highly likely the QWERTY keyboard layout. But you can go to settings and change it to AtWork. So what this API returns is a map between physical QWERTY layout that you can see and between what will actually typed. So if I type U looking at physical layout of QWERTY keyboard, I will type it will type G if I changed my settings. And it is actually hard to know which key are typed from the web, because we don't know which layout user uses. So this can help to identify which layout is used. And for example, VS Code Online uses it to detect your layout. So if you open it, it will in the browser, it will immediately detect your layout, that in my case, that it is AtWork. And it is very useful. It makes me it makes more comfortable to use this interface, because all hotkeys that exist, they work as they should work, as in the is in a native app for me. And there are some problems, unfortunately. And the main problem with this API is browser support. Among major browsers, Safari and Firefox do not support this API. And if you open VS Code in Safari, it will not detect your layout anymore. It will show some default layout. And it is not only that browsers didn't have time to implement this feature. They actually think that this feature is bad. They just don't want to do that and won't do that because they believe it introduces high entropy for fingerprinting. And fingerprinting is when you can identify a user even in incognito mode, with just, for example, checking his, in this case, checking which keyboard layout he uses. And you can check different APIs and different other things in local storage and so on, which monitor they use, where they're from, and so on. So if someone uses not default keyboard layout or not default QWERTY for this region, it is much easier to identify and track these people. And Brave browser also allows to turn off this API for users. But what can be done in this case? Is it all that hopeless? And the good thing is, no, you can still try making your application more accessible. As you know, we have a Keydown event, and we can actually access a key on the code on the physical QWERTY layout, and symbol that will be actually typed with it. So you can basically recreate the map with some limitations, because people can use a shift key and so on, and it can change the actual letter in this case. But for many cases, it can work. And here is an example of how it works with AtWork. And actually, Visual Studio Code has these maps that cover a lot of Latin-based layouts. And if you open VS Code Online and you start typing, it will immediately also identify your layout as well. It is not as perfect as in the first case, when you just open the application and everything works by default. You don't have to type anything. Here you need to type something first, but it is still good. It is still better than nothing, definitely. And what I wanted to say is that even though keyboard layouts are not started properly yet, I think we can profit make it more diverse and researching it and trying different variants. And as in my case, I chose AtWork because I believe it was created after more thorough research on English alphabet, and I think it benefits me. And I wanted to raise the problem of users like myself who use non-default layouts, that many applications just are not comfortable for us to use, and many developers never even heard that such people exist, and they face some problems like this. And if you are a developer or manager on the project who have application that needs using shortcuts quite often, I encourage you to make it accessible for people who uses some non-default layouts. And that's basically it. I've left some resources that you can read. Also gave a link to program AtWork if you want to install it. I didn't try it, but it looks also interesting for me. I might try it as well. And thank you very much. I wanted to mention these typewriters on this picture. When I was making researches for my talk, I find it very interesting that these small things that they are actually modern typewriters with electronic ink. And I think they're very helpful for people with ADHD who find it difficult to type with their laptops and get distracted all the time. So you will not, if you write novels or poems or something, or just articles, I think you can find them useful, and they're very light as well, and easy to take with you somewhere. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting to listen about his history. Anyone have any questions to Pauline? Okay, I think we can warm up and stop recording.